Welcome. Safety is our absolute first priority. Only together can we prevent unsafe situations. That's everyone's responsibility. Know your responsibilities and you'll always stay one step ahead of danger. Awareness of health and safety, the environment and well-being is not a 9-to-5 job. It has to be second nature. As well as the information that has already been harmonized, location and company-specific information also applies. Ask for it. Today we'd like to draw your attention to flange joints. It's very important to prevent leaks of gas and oil products. This is due to possible implications for the safety on the location and the environment. One of the main potential sources for leaks are the flange joints in installations. We have therefore issued strict instructions. If you work according to these instructions, you make absolutely sure that flange joints are leak-proof. The qualified fitters and their supervisors must know these instructions and comply with them. Always use new gaskets or rings when you make a new flange joint. If you want to reuse bolts and nuts, then the thread and the nut must still be functional. Only then you can reuse them. But they should also not have visual deformations or damage. Use the specified graphite grease to lubricate the thread of bolts and nuts. This product is called Molykote P1000. Please note that you don't use lubricants containing disulfide. For example, Molykote 3694 or Molykote GN+. This is not allowed since this can cause sulfide stress of the bolt material. Clean the flange facings and grooves thoroughly and check that the flange facings are free from scratches and corrosion. Look particularly in the radial direction. Do not lubricate the gasket and flange facing itself. When joints break, please check whether there are no old gaskets that contain asbestos. For example, the type of CAF, in other words, compressed asbestos fibres, or the type of SWAF. This is short for spiral wound asbestos filling. The removal of gaskets that contain asbestos can be done in-house, provided you meet specific control measures. Please note that some companies hold other values. Flanges must be properly aligned. This is of essential importance to ensure that the pressure is distributed evenly across the entire gasket. Prior to assembly, the right opposite flanges must be brought together. There are certain acceptance criteria for this. If necessary, you're allowed to use centering pins. The competent flange fitter himself or his supervisor review the accepted alignment and tilt of existing flanges in maintenance. If you have doubts, consult the inspector or the maintenance engineering department. Check if you can screw the bolts into their holes with your hand practically effortlessly. For sweet gas applications, you use a B7 or L7 bolt and a 2H nut. For sour gas applications, you use a B7M or L7M bolt and a 2HM nut. The type of material that is used is usually marked on the bolt head and the nut themselves. It's important that you know what gasket you use for a particular flange. Because if you select the wrong combination of flange and gasket, then there's the risk of galvanic corrosion. Take ring joints for example. For these joints, specific combinations of material and the corresponding coating of the ring apply. Here you see 3 examples. If you use spiral wound gaskets, then the inner and outer ring must be made of stainless steel. This applies to all types of flanges. The coating is indicated on the outer ring. You can use various tools to tighten bolted joints. It depends on the flange diameter and pressure class which tool you use. For example, hand tools, a mechanical or hydraulic torque wrench, or a hydraulic jack. Another name for this is bolt tensioning. If you use a mechanical or hydraulic torque wrench, then there are certain values for tightening moments of B16.5 flanges. Here you see examples of these values. If you want to know more about hydraulic jacking, ask the site manager or supervisor. Please note that some companies hold other values. If you tighten flange bolts, do so in accordance with a crosswise pattern. Repeat this pattern in 3 stages. So at 50%, 80% and 100% of the recommended value. Finally, tighten adjacent bolts in a clockwise direction at 100% of the recommended value. Here you see an example of the sequence to tighten flange bolts. In this table you see what you need to do to conserve flange joints at operating temperatures between -20 degrees Celsius and 120 degrees Celsius. In 2009, zinc-plated bolts and nuts have been introduced. Despite the enhanced corrosion resistance, these bolts and nuts should also be conserved in a manner described in this table. Wax coating Corollas CI400 is recommended and is available in aerosol form. After you've mounted the flange, you apply the wax coating. You must first de-rust and degrease the bolts and nuts and the space between the flanges as good as possible. If you use Corollas, use a spray can to apply the wax coating on the nuts and the spaces between the flanges. The same goes for the thread. The site manager or the supervisor informs you on how you conserve flange joints at operating temperatures above 120 degrees Celsius or below -20 degrees Celsius. Please note that some companies hold other values. It's forbidden to permanently seal flanges with tape. This is due to the risk of moisture accumulation. This may cause dangerous situations. There is one exception, and that is piping systems that contain Freon. We then use tape to detect Freon leaks. It's important to have health and safety at work, and therefore we must verify the correct execution of operations of all flange joints. We make a report and register all flange joints. For this, we use the flange registration form. Furthermore, all joints should have a tag that is physically attached on the relevant flange. Here is an example of such a tag. Only certified flange operators are allowed to handle work on flange joints. The training is valid for 5 years. For questions or further information, you can turn to your supervisor. And remember, work safely or do not work at all. Good luck.